this week, I invite us to continue our gratitude practice by expressing gratitude in a letter form this time, but maybe not necessarily to somebody that we would normally write a thank you letter to. Maybe to somebody who we would find it a little challenging to write a thank you letter to. And one of the upsides too of creating a thank you letter that's intended for journal use is that we can then also write a letter to somebody that maybe in reality, like not in journal form, we can't send it to. Maybe they aren't with us anymore, or maybe we don't have their address. You know, maybe it was a teacher many, many years ago and we don't have that connection piece anymore. But in a journal format, we can still have that space to open into our heart and to express gratitude from that position of beholding that divine love, divine light as that person. So instead of talking just about abstract, I want to talk about my personal experience with doing this. I've done this a few times actually. This particular page, even when I look at it, you know, it looks so simple here. And there is so much energy and emotion in this for me. So inside here is my actual letter, my little envelope. So pages, actually, many pages, front and back, that I created an envelope for. This letter was actually written to my father, who I had not seen since I was 13. So it was really a healing and transformative experience. So in my own experience, my parents had divorced when I was an infant, and for the first 5 years of my life, I spent back and forth, you know, on weekends, sharing time at my father's house, and that ended somewhere around kindergarten. And then I had this one moment when I was 13 where there was a family reunion and he was there. And that was the last time I had seen him. And while it never felt like, oh, there was this big loss or that, you know, we had any strong energy between us, every time I've done deep forgiveness work through my spiritual practice, his name has come to mind. And so this was one of those times where I was doing some, a series actually of writing in my journal, and his name came to mind. And so I thought, you know, I'm going to go ahead and write the letter that I could never write, to really sit with what would it be like to really just release and forgive any of those pieces, you know, that in my heart, there were those storylines that were still present, stories of, but you weren't there, or stories of, when I was there, you put way too much butter on my waffles. Like, that's the thing that I remember. I was 5, so it's like the memories are very limited, but it was those little things that kept me feeling some sense of there was something that I never got to say to him. And so I wrote it all down in this letter. And then this was someone I didn't have an address for, I hadn't seen in many, many years. And so I decided, you know, this was going to go in my journal. So I created an envelope to hold the letter, and I intentionally did not seal it. So this is something I can go back and I can reread if I ever feel, you know, I need to move into that heart space again with that relationship. Now, I'm not saying that you need to send your letter to anybody ever. I just want you to know that this really can be a very powerful healing experience if you allow yourself to go there. Now, again, we can easily write a thank you letter to someone that we're really close with, and even some of the people that we're really close with, there might still be that I love you and I'm grateful for you, except for, or but when you do this, you know, almost like we have some conditions around that. And so I want to offer the wisdom of Jesus in this space. Because Jesus says, if you are offering your gift at the altar and there remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar. First, go and be reconciled to them. Then come and offer your gift. And so today in our letter writing experience, I invite you to notice, is something coming up for you that needs to be reconciled before you move into writing that gratitude letter? So maybe there's that moment of forgiveness that enters your letter writing process and moving into that gratitude. Because ultimately that gratitude, that's the space we want to be. That's that space that we're focused on, especially this month. So the process itself for you is going to be first creating a letter to whomever that is. Again, it might be like your first grade teacher, that moment that they said something that triggered you, or maybe it's to your first art teacher that you ever had that inspired you. And so writing that gratitude from that heart center and remembering that divine spark, that divine blessing that they are in your life and in the world. Following the letter, of course, we want to create some place to keep it in our journals. Now in my page, I have this large envelope that I made. So there are two different ways that you can create an envelope in your journal. Well, I guess there's probably infinite ways. I'm going to show you two ways. One, probably the easiest would be if you have an envelope lying around the house and you just want to use like an envelope, just stick that in there, glue it in there. But the two that I want to show you are more of like a rectangular shape, like I have in mine, and then more of a square shape with a triangular fold, which is what you'll find traditionally in a lot of store-bought envelopes. Both of these use a square sheet of paper. If you have a rectangle and not a square, to turn it into a square, you just pull up one corner and match it along the edge. And then you'll cut off this little top bit. So when you open it, you'll have a square. So using your square, if I unfold this, you'll see it's just a series of 4 triangles. I folded the first 3 right at the edge, right where they connect corner to corner, folding that in on those 3 sides. And then the top one, to give it sort of this overlapping quality, I started the fold a little bit down on that page so that it comes down over. And then what I could do is put a sticker or a little bit of tape here to hold the envelope together. And then it's easy for me to open it back up again and be able to pull out the letter and read it if I want the reminder of that gratitude practice. The second one is super simple. Again, taking that square base, folding it up and leaving just a little bit of a lip at the top that you can fold over. Again, you could close it with a sticker if you wanted to, or leave it open like I did my flap here. What I did for decoration on this was following the process of the letter writing. I took out a couple of magazines and I just used sort of an intuitive process of letting the images speak to me. I know we've done that several times here, where you're just letting whatever images sort of catch your eye to be cut out and make their way onto the page. And this one here just reminds me of that, probably the last time I really had that connection when I was a younger girl, sort of the dad figure carving the family meal, the deer, and that sense of innocence and clearing emotional clutter And I think that was probably the biggest thing that for me came from the process, was that clearing of something that I didn't even know I was holding on to, which happens so often for us when we take this time to really be present to ourselves and to use creative expression as a way of deepening that self-awareness. And that's really what we're inviting each of us to do today, is to go deep within the process. So I intentionally, you might have noticed in the invitation that you got in your email, I did not include this page because the page itself to look at doesn't feel as strong, visually without the storyline. So I wanted to really connect it with the story there. So, and it again feels very, very personal. So happy to share it with you directly in this way. So before we move into our meditation, I just want to create a little bit of space for any questions that might be coming up in terms of what your focus might be today.
It's Barbara. I'm so sorry. I had to leave because Barrett was having a meltdown. Is the letter in the envelope a gratitude or a trigger letter, or either one?
It really can be either one. I want to open up the space for ultimately that it's a gratitude letter, but if there's anything on your heart that needs sort of that clearing, that forgiveness work first, to include that in that space. And, just inviting you to think about, who's somebody that maybe you wouldn't normally actually write a gratitude letter to and send it. This is kind of that safe space to write a letter.
Thank you.
Does that help? Yeah.
Yeah. Right now, I feel like I maybe need to write a trigger letter to Tom for putting syrup on those pancakes. Sorry.
It's okay. No, I love that. Barbara shared that in the chat there. Her husband was putting syrup on her grandson's pancakes and he was having a bit of a meltdown over it. So I'm just thinking, it's like my buttered waffles. I was like, no. Perfect. Okay. Well, if you have any questions at all on the process throughout the project, just remember that I'm here. I'm watching for the chat. So feel free to reach out at any point with any questions that you might have. And also remember, or for those of you that are new, please note that during the time of creation, we'll have about an hour for making our art. And I will be checking in with you in the chat about half an hour or so in. Please feel free to respond if you feel called to do so. If you are steeped in your project and you don't even notice the message, that's okay, please, no hard feelings. Just know that I'm here holding the space for you. And if you choose, not to write a letter today, that's okay too. Like if you just want to do a collage around the idea of gratitude for someone in your life, please feel free to do that as well. So we'll go ahead now and move into a time of meditation to sink into these ideas of gratitude, of forgiveness, of all the many blessings of people in our lives. So I invite you where you are to simply adjust your body so that you're comfortable. Close your outer eyes if that feels comfortable to you, or rest your gaze on something in your physical experience as a contemplative meditation on that object. Begin now to bring your awareness to the breath, simply noticing the rise and fall, the inhale and exhale. Without trying to change anything, we're just letting the breath center us. And then we begin to bring our awareness to our heart space, perhaps you want to put your hands over your heart as we rest our intentions and our thoughts on gratitude, divine love, and the power of forgiveness. And on the next breath, begin to bring your awareness back to this moment in time. As we prepare now to move into our time of journaling, we open our eyes, seeing with the eyes of divine love and beholding the original blessing of all. I want to thank you in advance for your continued financial support of this program. You can give online at unityartsministry.org or send a check or money order, cash, whatever you want to stick in your envelope to Unity Arts Ministry. And that's at 1901 Northwest Blue Parkway, Unity Village, Missouri, 64065. You can find the recordings of today's episode as well as all of our past Creative Spirit Gathering recordings on our YouTube channel, our Facebook page, and on our website at unityartsministry.org. We also have a special Facebook group, Creative Spirit Art Journals, dedicated to this group and sharing our work from this group, inspiring each other with creative tips. You can also share your work on any social media page and just tag us at Unity Arts Ministry.